Welcome to the Sony stand here at the Photography and Video Show 2024, where I'm here with Sam from Sony. Sam, really good to see you again. You've assembled what I would call the best toys. You've got so many great toys, so much great kit. You've been releasing at Sony so much over the last 12 or 18 months since we spoke last at the show. But there's some real highlights that you've assembled here on the stand in front of us. Should we start with the A9 III? Perhaps.
Yes, it's a really exciting place to start because it is literally a world first with the first ever full frame camera with a global shutter.
That's what stole a lot of the headlines a few months ago when this launched. And so practically speaking, global shutter, full frame, who's going to be making the most use of this? Are we talking sports? Are we talking high-end wildlife?
Both are obvious choices because one of the advantages of the global shutter is that with fast-moving objects, there's no rolling shutter effect, which makes it great for video as well. But for stills, again, you can shoot up to 120 frames per second at 24 megapixels with full autofocus, with full auto exposure, no sacrifices. And not everybody's going to want to do that. We've also got a new cool pre-capture feature where you can start shooting for up to a second before you sort of hit the shutter and it captures and then continue shooting. For most people, that's actually too much. All you really need is about half a second for your reaction speed, and then you can continue shooting.
As I get older, though, that reaction speed does change a little bit, so maybe the full second is maybe where I'm at these days. But yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Fast-moving objects, both of those features are really going to make a good difference to you capturing the truest, sharpest image as possible.
And also, unlike the A1, this features our AI processing unit. Now that's a processing unit which can recognize human eyes, human faces, human heads, human poses, animals' eyes, birds' eyes, animals' heads, birds' heads, and their bodies, insects' heads, insects' bodies, planes, trains, aeroplanes, and the leading edges of each.
Yes, because sports photography also includes things like, automotive and so on, and that, again, those things are moving super, super quick. So the AI is tuned to the use cases, I guess is what you're saying here.
Yes, and you do actually cycle through the different modes. So you choose between humans, between birds, between animals, vehicles, because what you don't want if you're doing a model shoot and a car goes past, it suddenly jumps to the car, or if you're doing a car shoot, it suddenly jumps to a person in the foreground. So yes, you cycle through the different modes.
Very good. So that's the A9 III. A lot of headlines around that. A lot of headlines as well around the glass in front of it. Now, something that we've been promised over the last few years in this transition to mirrorless cameras is some innovation as far as the lenses are concerned. And I feel as though we're now starting to see the fruits of that. Yes, it's good to have the standard focal lengths that we've had for a long time, one way or another, but actually starting to see some innovation in that area is what's really exciting me. What have you got here that kind of ticks that innovation box?
So you're right, it's about size, weight, and of course optical quality. So we recently released the new 20 to 70G. This is not a normal focal length, and this is an f4, but size and weight, it's super compact, but without sacrificing things like the aperture ring, the ability to turn on the clicking or off the clicking of that aperture ring, and the manual focus hole buttons that you can customize to whatever you want. Super light, as you can feel.
And it is really, really light. Of course, we're used to the 24-70 sort of focal length. This may sound like 4mm, but that does make a good difference if you're trying to capture wider scenes. And more than the 4mm itself, the numbers suggest.
Yeah, but I think one thing you say about Sony is we've got plenty of 24 to 70s to choose from. I've kind of lost count of how many there are.
Yeah. Weight-wise, though, that is really, really useful. Good stuff. Okay, so that's a 20 to 70. You've also got another one that's caught a bit of attention, the 24 to 50. Tell us about that.
So this is, of course, a brand new focal length, not very traditional, but the 24 to 50 is an f2.8, and again, super light, super compact. It's a G lens, so great optical quality, and again, even though the size, there's no sacrifices to the functions that you get with this lens when it comes to control. But weight-wise, it's, again, very, very light.
It is, and this is on a A9 II body here, isn't it? But yeah, you can just feel through the balance where that is. this also is really interesting for videographers as well, and I noticed there's a little switch on the bottom to unclick the aperture ring.
Correct, yeah. It's a popular feature on our lenses, and you find it on an awful lot of them now, because although most videographers don't often change aperture, if you're shooting live, sometimes you have to. You can't just pop an ND filter on the front. Of course, some of our cameras do have some very fancy internal ND filters, but if you're shooting with something like an alpha, you can change the aperture when shooting video, and you can turn that clicking on and off so you don't hear the clicking when shooting video.
Okay, so I guess the obvious question is why 24 to 50? Why have you chosen that? Who do you see using this lens?
If you want a super light, super compact lens, the focal length is all about the engineering to maintain optical quality, but give us a smaller size than you'll have previously seen. So it's about that combination of size, weight, which means that maybe you're a more mature customer who doesn't want the heavy bag, maybe you're a wedding photographer with a whole heap of different lenses in the bag. It's just versatility for that sort of person who values lightweight lenses.
Okay, let's go from the smaller, wider lenses to this bad boy here, the 300mm. Now, I'm picking this up. It is a heck of a lot lighter than it looks, and that's another surprise for me. Sam, talk to me about your 300mm G Master.
So we released this at the end of last year, and it was a huge success because basically this is a 300mm, which, like you say, you can shoot this without a monopod for sports. You can shoot it without a monopod, and it's really, really well balanced. If I put it on a camera, you'll find that the center of balance is not the front element, it's actually the center of the lens. So if you feel that I'll just give it to you like that rather than being so awkward, you can feel it's really well balanced.
Yeah, it really is.
Shaking right now. I know you're a strong man, but your hands are not shaking. It's a sign of how light that 300mm is.
That's a 300mm f2.8.
Yep, stabilization. It has the drop-in filter option, so you don't have to buy a rather expensive neutral density filter to the front. You can drop in a much smaller 40.5mm filter in there, so it's very, very easy to get a filter inside the camera without having to use one for that massive front element.
Easy question, but what's been the response to this from those who've had their hands on it so far?
It's been huge. I mean, we've had it at all of our major sports depots recently. Everybody wants to try it, and they do kind of fall in love with it, and we've had a huge response. It's part of the new design of lenses that, again, lightweight with no sacrifices in optical quality. It's
a big year for imaging, of course. It's an Olympic year. I'm sure we'll see lots of kits like this around in Paris in a few months' time. Of course, another area, we don't have time to go over it right now, but another area where Sony has been so incredibly active over the last few months is, I guess some would call it the mid-range, but it's the creator camera set. Just talk to me about all the various ZVs very quickly that you've been announcing and releasing over the last 12 or so months.
Okay, so very, very short history. We do surveys of the public globally of what people want to be, basically what children want to be when they grow up, and the number one is by far influencer, vlogger, content creator. So we do a range of products from the entry level all the way up to the full frame to suit every sort of content creator out there. So you might be 14 years old, wants to make a YouTube channel. We do the ZV-1 with a background defocus button, which is controlling the aperture in the bokeh, or a product showcase setting where we change the focusing mode, all the way up to the ZV-E1, which is a fully fledged, full-frame, 4K interchangeable lens camera.
Getting a lot of interest, and as I'm sure they will here at the show. Sam, we'll call it a day there for now, but thank you so much indeed for chatting us through, for grabbing some of these camera bodies and lenses to show us, because they are incredibly popular. You want to get hands-on with any of this, see how it feels on the body, see what it looks like through a body, and the weight of them as well. That's been really striking for me. Come and have a chat with Sam and his colleagues here at the Sony stand. Sam, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David.
Cheers.